Okay. Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we will be connecting with technology leaders in the sports industry, where we will simplify sports technology. I am Ami, your guide on this journey through the minds of tech leaders who are shaping the future of sports technology. We will dive deep into discussions and understand the innovations happening in this industry, from AI to cybersecurity, from cloud to sustainability. If it is sports tech, we are talking about it. Today we have a very rather very interesting guest with us. He is Mr. Ron Malhotra. We welcome you, Ron, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Ami.
Ron is a serial entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience as a founder and a mentor to multiple startups. After starting his career as a management consultant at KPMG, he currently operates in two roles. The first is founder and managing director of Berlin based SportsTech X, the leading market intelligence company for sports innovation. And the second is investment director at Match Ventures, a prominent European sports tech VC. He's a regular speaker at the industry conferences. Ron also serves as a mentor, judge at startup accelerators and competitions, while guest lecturing in various sports MBA programs. Today we would be having an interesting discussion with him revolving around mapping the global sports tech landscape and understand his views, his understanding, what are the trends in the markets, what are the opportunities ongoing. We welcome you once again, Ron, to the podcast.
Thank you. I know my name is a bit throwing for most people. It's spelled Rohn, unlike the traditional Rohan. I am
Yeah.
Indian very much, and I was given the name Rohan at birth, but my dad read a book on numerology, so one A disappeared, and it's Rohn is how we say
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So yeah, we go with Rohn.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. We welcome you, Ron. Like, if you could just
Thanks.
share, what is Sports Tech X, and then we can start the podcast.
Yeah, sure. Essentially, SportsTech X is the company that I started with a co-founder here in Berlin, German guy, and our goal in 2017, we kind of softly started working on it, and from 2019, it became a full-time project. End of 2018, early 2019, and the goal then was to kind of understand what is happening in the sports tech landscape. It was our own research project to map out the sports tech ecosystem so that we could identify, hey, what are the gaps, where are the opportunities, and where could our next venture come from? That market research became the venture because there was so much appetite for, I mean, we were just doing research on what is happening in the DACH region. So Germany, Switzerland, Austria region for sports tech, or the UK, or the Iberian Peninsula. So starting in Europe, we were just doing kind of surveys and landscapes of the sports tech startups that were present in these markets, and kind of grew from there. Then we did one for India, did one for Australia, for the US, etc. And these kind of ecosystem maps became what we were known for. And people started either paying for them or requesting for more information. So that market research has become what the company is. I've gone into the origin story a little bit. But that brings us to what we are, which is a market intelligence company. Our job and the job of my team is to know what are the latest, coolest, hottest solutions serving the sports industry. Who are the teams behind them? So who are the founders and solution providers, the startups themselves? Who are the investors behind those teams that are providing the capital to fuel their growth? Who are their early clients? Who are their early adopters? So which sports organizations, teams are actually kind of more open to innovation and experimenting with new products and such? And how does this look like from a global perspective? So what is happening in the US versus Europe, and of course Asia and India, which is a market I look at keenly. So with that overview, we is our bedrock of research. We do two main things. We create a lot of content, reports, newsletters, podcasts, videos, etc. And we help startups with fundraising, or also, and connected to my other role, we deploy some capital ourselves into startups. So essentially, we do the research, find the right companies, and if it's a really good fit, we feed it into the fund, Match Ventures, where I'm an investment director.
Okay, so the first question, like I would like to ask you, is what is the biggest trend shaping the sports tech industry right now, and how has it evolved over the years?
Um, every year we kind of see a slightly different spike, but all around similar themes. So in one topic might be a bit up in one year, but usually last year's topic will be number 2 or 3. We haven't seen too many disappearances. I mean, yes, there have been hype cycles like Web3 or NFTs, which have come and kind of disappeared, but that happens rarely. Right now, or at least as per the data that we published in our Global SportsTech VC report, which came out in November of last year. So these are our flagship reports, what we became known for. We talk about 65% of all investment that happens in sports tech. Last year, it was around $3 billion. 65% of that went into fan experiences, which is what? Which is sports organizations trying to deliver better experiences to their fans, which fans will pay for. So then they can monetize. Basically, the sports organizations can monetize their IPs a bit better. And this fan experiences can happen in multiple ways. Can be through ticketing and merch, can be through immersive experiences, can be through AR, VR, virtual worlds, whatever the case may be, content platforms. So there are different formats that can exist here. So fan experiences is a big one, and it is kind of it's a blue and red ocean at the same time. It's so vast and it's such a big topic that there's so much space for everyone to operate. But at the same time, there is lots of different pockets of heavy competition. So it's kind of contradictory with that blue and red ocean analogy. So I'll give you that as one. Another big one we look at is the media and broadcasting landscape. Sports media rights is arguably sports' biggest problem / opportunity today. You have one side, the NBA or the NFL, which sign landmark deals over long periods, 10, 11 years, for $7 to $10 billion a year. The IPL signs an incredible landmark deal, which kind of forces the broadcasters to create a merger because they can't afford it themselves. It is almost that their hand is pushing. This is just my conjecture. I don't know too much information, but there's probably a reason that JioStar was born is because the IPL is so expensive. But at the same time, in Europe, in the top 5 leagues, the prices don't go up. Or in India, even to sustain the high cost of the IPL, the broadcasters have to do something else. So the broadcast media landscape is a big area that will always see a state of flux and therefore opportunity. And the third last one I'll mention is around what we call the connected athlete or the connected individual, how just everybody is looking to get more data about themselves for their fitness. So about your sleep, your recovery, your activity. So different things around fitness or connected wear, which provides more data about the individual at a professional or at a recreational sport level. Yeah, that's also an interesting one. So a few big trends that we keep an eye on.
Okay. So, what are the regions or what are the markets, the major hubs where the sports tech innovations are happening right now?
If you look at the last 5 years, so from 2020 to 2024, about little over $30 billion was invested in sports tech startups. If I take a rough kind of valuation range, which is very conservative of 3 to 5x, you're looking at about $100 to $150 billion valuation market for the startups, and likely much, much higher than that. Yeah, there are companies that are alone worth that figure and much more. Most of this action, out of that 30 billion, about 16 billion is in the US. The US is by far the biggest, most mature sports tech market. And that's because it is the most mature sports market. And why is that? Because not just the 5 major leagues, which is the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, and the MLS, those are 5 big leagues, but the collegiate sports market, the NCAA, which is also gaining so much traction from a commercialization point of view related to NIL, the name, image, likeness. For our listeners, if anybody knows what it is or doesn't know, please look it up or we can get into it. But the collegiate market, you've got 100,000 people will attend an American football college game, far more than a lot of Premier League stadiums will get regularly on a Saturday. So that collegiate market itself is such a huge boost to the sporting economy. So the 5 major leagues and then emerging leagues like Major League Cricket and pickleball and other things, and then the major collegiate market. So that's the big one. That's by far and away, like I said, the big one. Second and third is actually Asia. You look at China and India. And India is actually an underrated sports tech market. For whatever reason, Fantasy sports seems to cause controversy, and people talk about it as sports and not sports, and sports tech and not sports tech. It is very firmly sports tech. It is, in fact, the first wave of sports tech adoption of the first tech post-consumer product we've seen globally. In the US as well, sports tech started with fantasy sports, with DraftKings and FanDuel. And then it gets more widely accepted in different formats of performance and wearables, etc. In Brazil, we've seen it. In China and also in India, it's sports tech, fitness, and gaming is usually the first three topics. So the US is the first, second and third are China and India. And then within Europe, the three biggest markets are the UK, Germany, and France. And UK, Germany are probably tier one. France is big, for a couple of companies, but other than that, there's not too much. Spain, lots of companies, lots of activity, not much money. Similar with the Nordics as a region, as a collective. Some great companies come out of Sweden, Denmark, Finland, etc. But individually, those countries will not have the investment that we see in other places. So these are the pockets, I would say, globally. And the last one I think is very important to mention is Australia. The land down under sees some incredible stuff. Some of the most innovative solutions first come from there. Catapult, which is the default kind of training app, that comes from there. If you look at what the Australian Open has done this year, from an innovation perspective, their animated broadcasts on YouTube, their Infosys-powered AI tennis league, their own venture fund that they've launched. I mean, there's so many things. So Australia cannot be ignored. It's a hugely important innovation market. So I know I covered the globe there, but at least worth noting that these are the markets that we keep a very close eye on.
Okay. So what are some of the innovations you have seen in the sports tech industry? And, who receives more funding and why does that happen? Certain people don't receive the funding and why does that happen?
This changes completely in different parts of the world. We look at sports tech in three key pillars. The first, and these three pillars are defined by the audience that these solutions serve. So we say sports tech is all technologies that help an athlete, number one, be better at their sport. And when I say athlete, we borrow Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman's definition. If you have a body, you are an athlete. So it can be pro, can be amateur, can be youth, can be Sunday footballer, just a runner, cycler, whatever it is sport that you do. Anything that helps you be better at your sport, number one. Number two, anything that helps a fan enjoy their sport better. So any sort of fan engagement solution, fantasy, betting, various fan engagement, fan experience tools I mentioned. And third is solutions for the executive, people who are working in the sports industry. So people who are working for sports teams, leagues, broadcasters, rights holders, different parts. And for them, it could be stadium tech, could be tournament management solutions, could be CRMs and data aggregation, could be sponsorship management tools, various things, right? So these are the three buckets. Now, depending on the geography you look at, the ratio of investment in each of these buckets changes. For example, in the US, solutions for fans gets about 50% of funding. So about half goes straight to the fans. Solutions for athletes gets about 40%. The third bucket, B2B, the solutions for executives, gets about 10%. So it's a 50, 40, 10. In Europe, it's slightly more even. It's about 40, 40, 20. So 40 for fans, 40 for athletes, and about 20 for the executive. In the Asian markets, it skews heavily to the fans. It's about 75% focused on B2C solutions paid by the fans, about 20% on the athletes, and the solutions for executives, be the B2B side, will be 1 or 2%. And the reasons are simple. In the Asian markets, the leagues themselves are not very mature. If you take India as an example, beyond the IPL, where the teams make some money, none of the other sports leagues are profitable. They're in the black. They're all losing money. All the ISL teams and even the IPL teams will complain in different ways about how they monetize. It's also this is also reflected in the investments that they make. From a performance technology adoption perspective, things are just starting to pick up now, and you see modernization, but not still. I think a ways to go for a lot of the teams to catch up. The fan experience in stadiums. I mean, when I was a kid going to cricket matches in Bangalore, which is where I was from, And I go back every year when I go, I try to catch an IPL game, an ISL game. It hasn't changed. There's that same popcorn guy with the same Pepsi guy who's coming around. This hasn't changed in 30 years. So, and it's not like these fans are paying cheap tickets. Like if you go to an IPL game, they're spending tens of thousands and lakhs of rupees. And these tickets are in high demand, but there's no infrastructure put in for these people. So there are big challenges about the mindset of how B2B solutions operate within that serve the sports industry in the Indian market. So it's just quite different geographically. So you have to see your market and understand it while you're bringing a solution out to your local market. I think that's important.
Okay. So how can startups, strike the right balance between monetization and fan experience?
That's a million billion dollar question, whichever way you ask it. I always say the monetization is the last thing before you scale. In what I mean that you have to solve for stickiness. You have to make sure that your customers or your fans, whoever's coming onto your app, whether it's a B2B, whether it's a sports team or a B2C consumer facing product, the few fans, even if it's 10, 100,000, whatever it is, that they come back and they love your product before you try and get to more fans and before you start monetizing, or at least get them to love your product before you start monetizing, and then maybe acquisition. So acquisition and monetization you can study, but retention is the first thing that you solve for. So it's retention, monetization, and then acquisition. Ideally, once you do it in that order, then you've got a good scale of business. At the same time, as an investor, I think the days of, hey, I've got a huge user base and user based valuations where you're not making any money, but I might have millions of users, those days are gone. We're not in the early days of Facebook where, hey, I've got millions of users and we can figure out what to do with them. Why aren't you figuring it out if you've got millions of users? What is the problem? Because I'm sure every founder has tried to monetize their base. I mean, at some point in time. So if you are telling an investor that there is huge potential, today it doesn't take a lot to roll a solution out. I mean, it didn't take a lot to roll a app or a website update out 5 years ago. And today, with the kind of AI tools available, forget years, months, weeks. It takes days, even hours to get something out and to market and test it. So I think this argument of our product doesn't make money is a very weak one. It doesn't have to make a lot. For your user base, for whatever scale, you have to start seeing some traction. And then show us, show the retention. I say us, but I'm also a founder. I also wear an investor hat. But you have to think in that way. Your businesses have to monetize because at the end of the day, the true value is delivered when people are willing to pay for it. Money is important to people. And if I can get somebody to pay part with their hard-earned rupees, euros, dollars, whatever, that means I'm delivering some value. So that is the ultimate test. I think in the early days, yeah, sure, you want to make sure your users are happy. And once those users are happy, start running some tests. Hey, would you be willing to pay for this? Would it be $5? Would it be $10? Would it be 500? Would it be 5,000? Whatever it is in your demographics, in your market that you think this is worth, but you have to start charging early and you have to start giving them a lot. I think your early customers have to be showered with love. And then hopefully as you scale, then you can scale your pricings and your features, etc. But yeah, that balance of monetization versus fan engagement or whatever it is, I think this is an old question. By that, I mean that you have to do both. If you want to raise significant amounts of money, I think you have to get it right from the start, make sure that your users are happy, they're delighted. And once they're delighted, you have to start monetizing, and then you have a really strong proposition to go out to market and raise capital.
Okay. So like you have seen startups, from few years ago and even today. So, what are the few mistakes, like, few common mistakes, what are still happening, and few new mistakes and few old mistakes which startups, the sports tech startups are doing?
One I already mentioned, which is you're just building out user bases and kind of drinking your own Kool-Aid is the phrase I would use. But, you think you're amazing because you've got a bunch of users, but none of them are paying for anything. So what are they really doing? And if you start charging, would they stay with you? That's the acid test. So I think that's one thing that that a lot of founders I hear or see. Well, hey, we haven't spent anything on marketing. We're not asking you to spend anything on marketing. We're just asking for how your users have come and what they're doing on your platform. So that's the first one, making sure that you're starting to generate a bit of revenue early days already. I mean, if you don't have to look at today, there are so many monetization models, microtransactions, which influencers have taught us. YouTubers come or TikTokers or Twitch streamers have taught us that there are multiple ways to monetize an audience, and loyal audiences will pay. So my point is monetization is less of a problem once you find the right product. So that is one. Another, I would say, I think you're seeing a lot of correction in the valuation expectations. I think this is just a market where funding has been tough to get in the last 2 years, and especially a market like India where sports tech in general, like I come to India and spend time talking to investors, and it's still seen as this weird kind of niche industry and what's happening here. And they don't get it, not a lot. There are a few, some breakout investors. Center Court Capital, I have to mention, they're the first major sports tech fund in India. Dream Capital, which existed for a while, I don't think they're so active now. And there are some others, Rain Matter, etc., who are also taking they're more on like fitness, health, wellness perspective rather than typical sports, but also look at sports as well. Usually, just a slight segue, usually funds go in two directions. It's either sports media entertainment, and they look at that way, or it's sports health wellness and go this way. So you see, starting to see a few of those emerge in India. That said, so when capital is hard to come by, I think valuation expectations need to be tempered. I think you've seen that significantly in 2020 and coming out of 2020. At the end of the last quarter of 2020 and 2021, we saw huge amount of funding coming into the sports tech ecosystem. Valuations were skyrocketing. Founders were having a great time, and investors were not. Cut to 2 years later, where a lot of that money has been spent, has disappeared. There's nothing left in the bank. Founders are struggling to find their next check, or they have to shut down, or they have to merge, which is what the trend showed us. We saw the data say that in the last 2 years, acquisitions have jumped up while first investment has significantly reduced in the sports tech ecosystem globally, not just in the US, Europe, or India. So I think the valuation expected to be realistic about what you ask for, and you're likely to get a deal done and close quickly. That's the other thing I would maybe say. We'll just leave with those two. There are many others I could point to, but we'll save those for another conversation.
Okay. So, like, do you feel investors, priorities change across regions? Like, it can be different in US, different in Europe, different in Asia. Is it like that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, 100%. I basically answered this question earlier when I spoke about the shift between the ratios per region. Like I said, US is slightly more leaning to fan, but also gives some attention to athletes, and about 10% to B2B. In Europe, B2B gets a bit more attention. In fact, I read this really good quote recently by a colleague who said that in some way, I mean, America also innovates, but Europe innovates and America scales. And you see a lot of great, especially around broadcasting, video tech, sponsorship tech. You see some great solutions coming out of Europe. Not to knock any of the American guys, they're not coming after you. Some great tech comes out of there as well. But you see, especially Israel, like there's some amazing tech that comes out of Europe, and America just bang, really know how to scale it. So the B2B side is a bit higher here. Also, the dynamics of the markets. There are a lot of, you could have a sponsor solution for, say, football, which is based out of the UK, or based out of London, which is serving the UK. You have a similar solution out of France in a French language, serving that market. Similar solution out of Spain, serving that market. Similar solution out of Germany, in German. So the language of contextualization is also really important, where these smaller markets will operate. So a similar solution can exist multiple times through different companies in separate markets. So which makes each company smaller, right? Versus US, you have one big market, one language, much easier to dominate. In Asia, I mentioned this earlier, the B2B segments are really weak because the sports leagues are not as mature. So everybody's B2C. So everything is, what can we get from the consumer? And that's why it's topics like fitness drive more, fantasy drives more. Gaming and esports we've seen being a big driver of investment. That's been the first wave. Now we're yet to see what is the second wave. And I think there are some interesting opportunities on the horizon.
Okay. So what are the untapped opportunities like you are seeing, potential opportunities in future where the startups can focus
Globally or in India?
globally, globally?
Globally, right? Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I said that while broadcasting is sports is kind of media rights, let's say the media rights landscape is sports' biggest challenge. It's also the biggest opportunity. I think there is a lot happening in this space. We can use, I can talk about AI, but AI is horizontal. AI is not a vertical piece. AI will enable every solution that you provide. So whether it's media, whether it's fan engagement, whether it's a CRM, whether it's data enrichment, whatever the case may be, AI is going to play a key role here. So AI is kind of very quickly getting commoditized. Every pitch deck has AI, so that's the default. I won't spend too much time there. So based on the vertical, I'd say media rights, anything around broadcasting, anything which is enhancing the broadcast experience. Give you a couple of examples. The NFL at the end of last year did their I think they call it Football Fun Day, which was a Simpsons
Hmm.
kind of co-branded game. But what was happening there? It was a live NFL game, real time, rendered in a Simpsons world where Bart and Homer are the two quarterbacks, right? So your kids are watching it. So dad is watching it on TV as a regular game, and the kids are watching it on the screen next to him if they want. Dad or mom, of course, sports is opening up to all sorts of new audiences, and the kids are watching it in their cartoon format in another screen. The NFL started that. They've done that before, of course, with they had partnerships with Nickelodeon, with Slime Zone and stuff. But this was the first time they did a full game. The NBA did it with Dunk the Halls. The NFL is doing something with SpongeBob. They've also done that in the previous year. So I think this animated alt casts are the term that is used, and there are different types of categories of alt casts now, not just the normal broadcast, but alt casts, alternative casts, which are catered to specific audiences. So you might have a betting focused alt cast or a kids focused all-cast or a female audience focused all-cast where the commentary is slightly different, where it's not giving you the typical commentary. It's giving you maybe a bit more of the storytelling rather than more stats or too much technical stuff. Like there are different ways that you can tap into different audiences. And that's a big part of sports. So I'd say media and broadcasting. Of course, the connected fitness space will always be one. We see this trend does not go away. And so there'll always be something there. And I'd say the third one is immersive fan experiences. The likes of Cosm, which have set up these huge, very expensive facilities, but they provide an incredible viewing experience. And I think you're going to see that more and more in other formats in sports stadiums. I think that experience is getting elevated, and also at home or other types of venues where you can enjoy your sports in these kind of immersive formats. And I don't like to talk too much about AR and VR. To be honest, I think VR is a long way away. I don't like to have too much of a conversation about that. But AR, I think there is something in terms of augmented reality which will play a role. So let's say enhanced reality or some sort of immersive experience that makes the sports viewing more enjoyable. I think that's a big one.
Okay, I have a lot of questions, but I'll ask you last two questions. Like, what role does partnerships play, with the leagues, with the clubs, as you were mentioning, the broadcasters or the media people, and in scaling a startup or monetizing or, for the process, how does it work? Like, what's the role?
I mean, they are your clients. They are so they're not just they can be partners, but they are at the end, usually, it depends, of course, on the solution. But if you're a B2B facing product, then of course, these are the people that you want to be working with very closely. And if you are a B2C product, these solutions are going to play a big role one way or the other. So it's important to get them involved. How do you get them involved? How do you get buy-in? Well, in Europe, you've found a good level of maturity now starting to emerge from the sports organizations which provide or at least have some sort of innovation hub through which they're looking to partner. Um, You've seen this famously through the Barca's Innovation Hub, Real Madrid Next, UEFA has an innovation hub, FIFA has an innovation program, various clubs across Germany, Spain, the UK. They don't talk about it that much, but a lot of them do a lot of things. Manchester City are incredibly active. There's a reason that they, not this season, but every season they top the table because they're incredible on the pitch and off it. So they do a lot of work around collaborating with startups and innovation programs. Australian Open, I mentioned earlier, they have their own Australian startups, AO startups, they call it. In the US, NBA Launchpad just announced their new cohort. The MLB has various programs. The NFL doesn't do too much publicly, but they have stuff that happens in the background. So there are all sorts of innovation programs that major leagues, teams provide. I think it's up to startups to try to find a way to connect with those and get some feedback. In the Indian context as well, this is something that we're starting to see emerge. Uh, RCB has an innovation lab. Rajasthan Royals, the IPL cricket team, has something. Disney Hotstar I mean, now JioStar, but Disney Hotstar had Star Innovation Labs, I think they used to call it, which, I've gotten to know a lot better now, and they do some incredible work. So yeah, I think you're starting to see the pockets of these innovation hubs, innovation labs, or accelerator programs or startup cohorts, one way or the other. So I think that's the best place. Not everybody can get in. They take only maybe 5 or 6 or 10 a year. But that's a great place to start and get on the radar of a lot of these leagues.
Okay. And what is the advice you would give the entrepreneurs looking to navigate basically and succeed into the sports tech world?
I mean, I'm nobody to give advice. I can only share perspective. From my perspective, I think we're at a point where solutioning or just coming up with a solution is not enough because it's so easy to create solutions. I can create an app, I can build a web app, it's very, very quick, like literally days, weeks, I can get a product out to market, test it, get feedback, and keep running in that loop. So it's almost who will spend the most time on it, learn the most, learn the fastest, kind of work the hardest. And all of that comes from really caring about the products that you're building and the solutions that you're providing to the market. Because if you don't care about it that much and you have other priorities, or this is a job and there are other things that you like to do, or you think this is what the market needs, so that's why you do it, or you create like I don't know, a broadcasting solution which, hey, because this is trending right now, or you create like a NFT based solution because that's trending right now. I promise you there's somebody who loves doing that, and they are eating, sleeping, dreaming that. So you thinking you can do it, you're going up against some tough opposition. That doesn't mean that it can't be done. Many people have done it. Not everybody loves completely what they do. But if you're working in sports, it's usually a pretty tough, tough hill to climb. There are many other industries. If you just wanted money that you could jump into, become a stockbroker, or go to Wall Street or wherever else. So you're probably not doing this for the money, not at least in the short term. You want to make it in the long term. So if you're playing long-term games, which is I would encourage anybody to do, don't think short-term, play long-term games. Naval Ravikant said that in his book and many other places, and I think that's great wisdom that I can pass on. That's good advice. Go read Naval Ravikant or read other people like that. If anybody who doesn't know, he's the founder of AngelList and various other things. Incredible angel investor and incredible founder himself. Yeah, I would say find things that you're really passionate about, a topic, a solution, and then give it your all. Because if you do that, then I think you're bound to find success.
Okay, we'll move to the next round. It's a rapid fire round. I'll ask you a few questions. You will have to be quick in answering.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
do my best.
Yeah, okay. First, sponsorship, subscriptions, or licensing. What's the best monetization model?
Sponsorship subscriptions or licensing subscriptions.
Okay. If you could fix one major challenge in a sports tech monetization, what would it be?
How do you get fans to pay something that they're happy for, but not pay too much? You can't squeeze them too much too early. I think this is a big
Oh,
challenge in sports. But fans have to pay.
okay. In one word, what's the future of sports tech?
Bright rocket ship.
Okay. If you had to survive a day without technology, which sport would you play to pass time?
I'm getting a bit older, so now my sport of choice is running. I run a lot. It's my favorite thing to do. But if I had to, yeah, probably football. I watch it the most, so I would like to play a bit more. Between running and football, probably.
Okay. One sport venue you'd love to watch a game from. Only one.
Um, that I haven't been to, I would say, oh, that's a tough one. Maybe the MCG. It's been on my mind. I've been planning a trip to Australia. I've heard incredible things about Melbourne Cricket Ground, so why not?
Okay. What's your guilty pleasure sports snacks? Stadium nachos or popcorn?
Popcorn.
Okay. The last one.
Okay.
If you could have dinner with one sport legend, past or present, who would it be?
Undoubtedly, Sir Alex Ferguson. The Manchester United fan does not need to be explained further.
True. And we'll run to the last segment. Just answer the question in 30 seconds. In your opinion, how can AI be leveraged to enhance fan experience while simultaneously boosting revenue for the sports tech companies?
Um, How can it be leveraged? I think the most important thing is to know. I mean, there are various AI tools out there, and I think the biggest challenge is finding the right one for you. We as a company as SportsTech X, I think we use about five now. I myself have paid versions of about four, which I use Claude for something else. I use ChatGPT for something else. I use Perplexity for something else. And a lot of our existing tools have inbuilt AI. So whether it's Canva or Beehive or Riverside or podcast, like I mean, every tool has an AI component. So you have to really understand how that tool works in that, or that AI works in that context. And whatever you're trying to build, whether you, I don't know, trying to build a deep machine learning algorithm because you've got a heavy data analytics solution, or you're trying to build something out for fans, I think you really have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of different AI models, LLMs, whatever base. Are you like me? I mean, I'm not an AI based builder. I'm an AI user. So it's my job to know which AI tools do what and what I can use them for. If you're an AI based builder, then also the same. I think you have to really understand what LLMs offer what, or not just language modules, but different types of large modules. What do they offer and what you can leverage them for? I think that's a very fundamental importance because there's a lot happening.
Okay. Thank you, Ron, for sharing your insights. And it was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me, Ami.
Thank you. So, everyone, please stay connected. For more information on sports technology, please do join us. That was Ron once again sharing his insights today. Thanks for tuning in. Meet you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, keep exploring.